Hi, this video is to show stitching the corner blocks and a border to connect them, and then chunking the side borders down. If you're doing a quilt that your frame isn't long enough for you to turn it on the rails, then this becomes an option that you might want to use. So I want to show doing that. So the first thing that you want to do before you even load is you want to know what is the measurement from the top raw edge to the lower raw edge. You want to make sure that you have that measurement. And then if you'll be doing like I'm doing, quilting a pantograph edge to edge, border edge to border edge design here, you'll need to know what is that measurement also. If you were just quilting blocks, then it probably wouldn't matter. But if you're going to go from border to border, you'll need that measurement. So get that before you load. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pick our corner blocks and we'll quilt them. So we'll go into Select and Sew. And the block that I will be using is Liquid Silver Flow Corner from Ann Bright. And that's what it looks. So when you first get into this is what you might see. Well, we do want 1 point. When you tap on all, you have different placement methods. And we do want the 1 point. And we also want to choose corner. Okay, so something else that we want to do is go into Toolbox and choose Marking Tool, okay? And I've already done the markings. That's the lines that you see on the screen, but I want to show you what I did. I decided what kind of margin did I want for my border, okay? So I decided that I wanted 1/4 of an inch from this seam right here. So I also want 1/4 inch from where the binding will hit. So this is already 1/4 of an inch right there. So I need to take 3/4 of an inch from raw edge to seam. So this is 1/4 inch from the raw edge to the seam. So that gives me 2.5 inches. So that's what I want for my border to stitch between. So I went ahead and used a blue marking tool, and however this works for you to do, you may be able to use your foot to create it. So whatever works. For me, it works to use the blue marking pen that cold water is going to remove it. So I went ahead and drew a line 1/2 inch from this raw edge, and then I drew a line 1/4 inch from here. And so using the marking tool, I put my needle over the blue line there, and with number 1, I tapped Add, and then I moved up to the top, 1/2 inch in from the side and the top. And then I tapped Add again, and then I just went ahead and moved all the way across. And now if when I had tapped here, this top line wasn't really good and straight, noticeably, there is a little jag right there, but I'm not going to worry about it. But that's also another way to tell right off, have you got your quilt top straight? So then I tapped Add again, and then I moved down here and tapped Add. Then to get number 2, I tapped on Add Marking, and then I was able to add the marking that way. When you tap Add Marking, you can, like I could tap 3 and say Enter, and that would add another one. So anyway, so I added a 2, and then I moved my needle over this blue line, and then I said Add, and then I went up to that corner spot, Add, and then over here I said Add, and then I moved it down a little ways and said Add again. So now I have a reflection of this 2.5 inch area that I want my border to quilt between. Okay, so once you do this, you don't want to shift or move your quilt top any. You don't want to be pulling on it or shifting it. You need for it to stay exactly like it is for this to correctly reflect there. So another thing, don't lean on it. So just want to be real clear about once you create those, you need to not move anything, because that will get you off. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to placements. I'm going to tap on placements, and I need for this to be a lot smaller than what it is. Right now that node is gray. That means it has not been placed. It turns green when it's placed. So I'm going to move my needle over this intersection of these two lines. I want it in the top corner of where I have the blue lines drawn. And so with my needle there, I'm going to tap, okay? But you can see it's really not, it's way too big. You can see that. And in fact, that little green line is inside my drawn line, so that means I didn't have my needle over quite far enough, and I'm going to re-tap it. Move it a little bit more. Okay, because really that green line and this green line needs to line up with my drawn lines. So now I'm not even going to touch my handles on my machine. I'm just going to start tapping on this. And because there's a long way to go, I'm going to go ahead and just enter. I tapped on the H and it gave me that. And I'm going to say, okay. And I'm going to go ahead and tap on that node again. And that just kept me from having to keep tapping on that. It put me a lot closer in the ballpark. But you can see part of my design is still hanging over my line. So I need to reduce it down. So I'm just going to tap some more on this. And I'm going to replace my node. And I think it's looking really good right now. Because I'm not looking for it to be just 100% perfectly accurate, but I think that's really close. So let's see if I were to make it a tiny bit bigger. I have to replace my node anytime I touch it. So okay, I think that I like that. So now I'm actually ready to go ahead and stitch this. And now I can tap on show grid. I can tap on show pattern size. When you tap show pattern size, it shows it in pale ink up there in that top left corner there. So this looks good to me. So, and I don't need to do anything as far as reversing or flipping yet, because I'm just in that top left corner. So I'm going to tap on quilt. And I need to go into settings and make sure, okay, it's medium speed. We've got a 3 tie off, 11. I'm gonna stick with that. Now I have automatic bob and pull unchecked. I don't like that. So I'm gonna say okay. And I could trace at this point if I was uncomfortable with where it might hit. So in fact, why don't we just do that? So you can see where that little petal there is going to be. So we'll just let it stitch a little bit. Trace. So I'm kind of watching to see where's it going to hit as far as my blue line. And then I'm going to watch for the other petal that gets near. Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. So now I'm going to say pull bobbin. And one thing, where's my thread? There it is. It's blending in with the fabric. I can't see it. So I'm going to say single stitch. And pull my tail up. And I'll bury the tail later. But I'm going to hold it really good and firm to give me a firm stitch path to start and tap on sew. Okay, the stitching has ended, and now I'm going to move it away and move it back right over, and that's probably not going to work. I'm going to say needle up, needle down, needle up. So, and I'm going to leave myself some tails to bury. Okay. All right, so I'll bury those later. And I'm going to say finished and back to pattern placement, but there's something I didn't do. So while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to tap on quilt. We're not really going to quilt. I just should have done this first. I'm going to tap on save. This is my place to save my pattern. So I'm going to go to video, and the name I'm going to say corner block. Enter, save. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. Okay, so now I need to do the right corner. So in order to flip it, because we have this corner placement, I can reverse it. So right now the arrows are pointed to the right. I'm going to tap 45 twice. So 1, 2, and now I'm going to move my needle over this top right corner here and tap on that green node because I'm replacing it. Wow, that looks good. So now I'm ready to quilt this corner. So I'm going to tap on quilt. And pull bobbin. Single stitch. Hold my threads firm and tap on sew. Okay, so now I need to pull the bobbin. Go into the toolbox and say single stitch. I'm pulling out enough to bury a tail. Okay, so now we've got our 2 corners stitched, okay? And something I'm going to do just to make it easy is where this stitching started, okay? I'm going to put a blue dot right there where that started. And I'm going to do the same thing over here with where this stitching ended. It's in the brown. That won't be very easy. So anyway. Okay, so now I need to do the border that's going to connect them. So I'm going to say finished, back to pattern placement, and I'm going to tap on this X, and that takes me to the home screen, and I'm going to go into pantograph. The mode that I want is easy mode, and the total width. I need the width from this blue dot that I just marked to that blue dot. So I'm going to tap on the yellow ruler, and I don't know why it's pink, but the measuring that I want is with the slanted green line. So I'm going to move my needle exactly over where that stitching ended, and I'm going to tap on the left side there, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to put my needle exactly over where this stitching began. I'm going to tap there, and I'm going to say apply measurement. Okay, so now I have a total width measured between those two stitches, and now this is going to be my total height, okay, which is 2.5 inches. Now I need to select my pattern. So I need to go into where it's saved, and it is Liquid Silver Flow Border and Bright. Open. And sometimes it does this. You'll be like, where is the pattern? I don't know. But if I tap on center and I have to unlock this yellow lock and I say yes, it appears. Okay, so now it's stretched from side to side, and I don't need to flip it any because this is how it's correctly oriented. So what I want to do now is place as a single pattern, but I'm going to remember to save it this time. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go into this video, and I'm going to give it a name of top, and then I'm also going to say lower border, because we'll be using this when we get to the bottom. So I'm going to say enter and save. When we get to the bottom, we'll flip it. But for now, we're good. And so I'm going to say place as a single pattern. And now I want to change this 1 point to 2 points. And I also want it to be stretch, because I want to move my needle over that left ending stitch over here. And see, I want it to start stitching exactly where the border stopped. So I want to make sure my needle is right over that, and I could use my needle jog if I wanted to just know that it's gonna be exact. So I'm gonna tap there and then come down here, and again move my needle exactly over where that stitching began. Okay. And probably I could be a little more accurate. I could be using my needle jog, but for the sake of time, I won't. So now I'm looking. Is my border in between those lines that I had created? And it looks like they are. It looks like they are. So I'm happy with that. I don't want marking selected. I only want pattern selected because that's all I need to stitch. So now I'm ready to tap on quilt. And I'm going to move it down here where it's already close. And I'm going to tap on pull bobbin. Where did my scissors go? Well, these scissors can get away from you quick. All right, so I'm holding this. I'm going to take a single stitch and pull it up. I'm going to hold everything good and firm and tap on sew. And then we'll be back when it gets to the end there. Okay, the stitching has just ended, and if I wanted to be super accurate in pulling the bobbin exact, then I will touch pull bobbin, Okay, and I'm going to say move away. And I'm going to grab this upper thread, kind of give myself a little hanging on room, and I'm going to say move back. And now I'm going to say single stitch. Okay, I'm going to drag my scissors under there and grab this loop. Okay, that's my bobbin. Okay, so I want to make sure I've got some tails, so I have that, and then I'm going to cut from the end. This end is tight, so that's from the stitching, and this end pulls freely, so that's the end I want to cut toward. Okay, so now I'm going to say back, and I'm going to say finished. Okay, so now I have connected nicely with the corner. So now this is the hard part, and it's really not really hard, but you just kind of have to think about it. So this is being added into the video, so this is being made after the video ended, and we're inserting this in. While I was making the video, I had what I was calling a cheat sheet for myself, okay? But after the video ended, I decided to go ahead and make it an official cheat sheet, okay? So it's 3 pages long. I won't really call it a tutorial per se. It's just really tracking along with this video, okay? So it's just all the steps I did. So you don't need to take notes if you don't want to, because you'll have this. And then I also decided it would be nice to have an Excel spreadsheet. So I created this spreadsheet, and it can be opened up in Microsoft Excel or another product that will open Excel. And there's 2 ways you can use this. If you use it in Excel, there are actually formulas here that do all the math for you. All you will have to do is just enter the amounts that it tells you to, and all the other cells are protected. So the only place you can even actively enter something on the spreadsheet or worksheet is just where you enter numbers. So if you don't know anything about Excel, you actually could open this up and use it, okay? But if you don't want to do that, then you can use this manually with your calculator and just enter the numbers, and it'll tell you what math you need to do. So I tried to make it be a worksheet that could go either way. If you wanted to use it with Excel, fine, or if you wanted to use it with your calculator. And if you're using it with Excel, then over to the side is a delete all entries, so that when you get through, you can tap on that, because you actually, at some point, you do need to re-enter some numbers, but really that you would want to delete all of them. So, so yeah, when you get through, you could say delete all entries, or if you just close out the file and don't save it, that's going to delete all your entries also. Okay, so where can you find these two PDFs? They're going to be saved as PDFs, and I've already gotten permission to put them on the Facebook page for Quilters Creative Touch. So if you go on Facebook and go into Quilters Creative Touch files, you will see these 2 PDFs. So hopefully that you will find them helpful in doing the chunking process about it. So now at this point, I'm going to show chunking down the sides, and I'm going to be very honest. I have no idea what is the right way to do things. I don't know, should I be stitching this first and then the borders? Should I chunk here and then stitch this and chunk there? Can I go ahead and chunk this and then do this? See, I'll just be honest. I don't even know what is the right order. So for the sake of this video, because I know that I'm nice and straight right now. I haven't done any quilting here that's done any pulling in or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and chunk down the side. So now we need to know, how do we figure that out? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at where is that stitch that this corner block started stitching at, okay? So, and I'm going to measure from the raw edge, okay? And so that is 4 1/8 inch, okay? So the same will happen when I get to this bottom corner. Again, it will be 4 1/8 inch. So I need to double that. I need to say 4 1/8 plus 4 1/8. So that's 8 1/4. And then that raw edge measurement, that height that I took when I very first started out, I need to subtract 8 1/4 inches from that. Okay, this is something about these top corner blocks that I didn't think about till later. So this is being inserted into the video. So it's very important that I show you this. The blocks that were used here were square blocks, you might say. No matter whether they were rotated or not, the distance from this seam to the top edge on both sides was the same. And that's why I said just double that amount. But there are some corner blocks. This is one from Urban Elements where it's not that perfect square block. You have a farther distance. Like, I'll just go ahead and lay this here. So if this were here, this distance is going to be a shorter distance than once you rotate it and come over here. Now you've got a longer distance. So on this sheet, that's why it says for the top left corner block and for the top right corner block. It's going to be two different measurements if you have a corner block that's not a square block, if one reaches down. Because what's going to happen is when this gets down here, then it's going to be the same as that block up there. And as it rotates down to the bottom, then it's going to be the same as that one. So by just going ahead and measuring this one and then that one, you're going to get that distance down the side between the two corner blocks that you need. So that's why it's so important on this spreadsheet that there be two different ones for the top left and top right corner block. So sorry for this abrupt break into the video, but now we're going to get right back to chunking down the side from that. Okay, so if you're one of the people who is chunking because you don't have the width on your frame to accommodate the length, then you're not going to be able to change the safe area to do what we're about to do. So that's why I'm going to go over to my laptop. So hopefully you'll be able to do this, because when you're on your laptop, you can enter anything you want. And I've already kind of done that. Okay, so I'm going to do my calculator here. And I had measured 44 5/8, which is 625. Okay, and now I need to say minus 8 1/4. So 8, I think I messed up, did I? 44.625 minus 8.25 equals 36.375. So on my laptop, I've already pulled up easy mode, okay, and I've already pulled up my border. This was just to save time for the video. And in the total width, I'm going to enter 36.375, okay? And I'm going to say, okay. The total height, 2.5. You're using that same total height that you used when you did the border across the top. Okay, now at this point, you are seeing what is the pattern width for if you were going to be able to quilt the entire side at one time. Of course, we're not going to be able to. So here's what we're going to do. You need to write down that that 4.547. So I'm going to write this nice and big, 4.547. So that is the pattern width for one pattern, okay? So now what I want to know is how many of these can I quilt vertically down? And right now, I need to advance my quilt so that this is pushed on up, just so I can give myself all of this quilting area, okay? So I'm only going to advance it just a little bit, but that's to give me all the possible quilting area that I can, okay? I wanted to make sure I had measured before I did this. So now that it's measured, I can get this done. And let's see. All right. I'm going to go ahead and push my machine back so I can tell where things are. Okay, so I'm just going to advance it. That's probably good enough. And usually I use the marking tool to make sure that I'm staying straight. So I'm kind of cutting a few corners I might normally do. But this is a little quilt, and it's also very square. So that is a plus. Okay, and now something that I need to do. Well, I'm okay. I still have my edges basted, so I'm probably still good enough. And I'm going to do a little quick test and just kind of make sure I'm pretty straight. This is just me making sure. So I put my edge there at the raw edge, and I'm just going to push straight back. And it's pretty close. I'm going to do the same over here. Just make sure I'm pretty close to being straight. Yeah, I'm pretty close. So, and you know what? I think I will. I'm changing this to 4. I'm going to go ahead and baste the edge down. Just get that little section, because I don't know how far. I'm going to cheat and reach underneath. I don't know how far down I'm going to be able to chunk, but however far down, I want to make sure that I'm covered with the basting on the edges. And I'm cheating and reaching underneath. Okay. Okay, so now I need to go back. So I'm going to X out here. And I'm back in easy mode. And I'm going to go into the ruler. And I'm going to use just the ruler, okay? I want to know what is my current quilting area as far as height. And this will be a step that you'll need to repeat as you advance down, because it's going to change on you as quilt builds up on the take-up rail. So right now, and I don't really want it touching. I want it a little bit out. And I want to tap on that left side. I'm just going to pull it straight forward till it stops and let it go back a little bit. So I have 16.2 inches, okay? So here's what I want to know is how many of those single patterns am I going to be able to do? So I'm going to take that quilting space of 16.2 and I'm going to divide it by my 4.547, which that was the width that we determined if I were able to quilt the entire left or right side border. This is the width that would perfectly fill in between the corners. So when I say, let's see, what did I do? Yeah, I did that, divided by that, and equals, and I get 3.5. Well, I don't want to do 3.5. I want to do 3, okay? So I'm going to be able to quilt 3 of these. So now what I need to do is take this 3.547, and I want to go for that whole number. because I want to do 3 whole patterns, and I know that I'm able to do that because I just did the math. So if I say 4.547 times 3, I get 13.641, okay? So now, let's see, we'll just say 13.641, okay? That's going to be my width. And I'm going to X out of this because I don't need that anymore. And one thing I do want to show, because there could be a quilt and a pattern that chunking may not work so well for. So when we did this border across the top, the width of a single pattern was 4.382. Easy Mode figures out for you based on this height and keeping the ratios matching. It figured out for me that would be the pattern width for how many would fit nicely across, okay? So then what we just did on the laptop was we used that measurement between the corner blocks, and so for that to get nice patterns for 2.5 inches height, it's 4.547 width. Okay, so between 4.38 and 4.54, I'm guessing the naked eye would never pick up on the difference between the side patterns and the top patterns, because that's a pretty minimal difference from 4.3 to 4.5. So I'm okay with that. And now on this total width, I need to change it to what 3 of the patterns are going to be. So we had said the 4.5 times 3. So I'm going to change this to 13.641, and you're going to watch that 4.3 change to 4.547. So I'm going to say, okay. So there it is, 4.547, okay? So now this is what we need to quilt down the side. Okay, so we're going to place this as a single pattern. Okay, right now, we don't want to have to figure out what is the second point down here. We know the first point is right up there, and we've got the width we need. So I'm going to change it back to 1 point and the start. That's what I want. I'm going to tell it where to start, and that's where that beginning stitch of that corner block was. But we do need it rotated, and also we need it flipped, okay? So I'm going to tap on this reverse, because I need it to be vertically. So I'm going to tap on this twice, okay? So now it's now vertical, but we have a problem because this is oriented fine for if we were doing the right border, but we're doing the left border. So now I need to tap on the arrows that point down, okay? Because literally this is a horizontal thing. So we're doing that. So now the orientation is correct. If you didn't have a border that had a different top and bottom, then you wouldn't need to do this step. But if the top looks different from the bottom, then you will need to do it. So right now we're good. And I'm going to move my needle over this spot, and I dotted it so I could see it pretty easy. And I'm going to tap on this gray node, okay? So as I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know how good I am because of the gray lines. So at this point, it might behoove me, since I have shifted, to go into the toolbox and marking tool. And I think what I'll do at this point is I'm going to go to number 2, and I'm going to say remove selected. Yes. And now I'm going to add marking number 2, enter. I'm going to do it again, okay? So we'll start up here where I still have my blue line. I'm not going to worry about going across. I'm just going to worry about going down now. So I'm going to say add. I'm going to come down to there and say add. And I think that looks pretty good now. So I'm going to trust that the left side is okay. I'm just going to trust that it is. And if I kind of wanted to do a check, then I could come over here. I could add another marking and just call it test, enter. And I could do an add and just see how it lines up. So it's in just a little bit, but because that inner line is good, that is so minute, I'm not even going to worry about it. So I'm going to tap on placements again. It takes me back to this screen, and I'm going to pull bobbin and sew. Get it near there so it doesn't have as far to travel. I'm going to tap on quilt. And pull bobbin. Single stitch. Pull up my bobbin loop. Hold my tails. Tap on sew. And I'll let go when it starts stitching. So we'll come back when we get to the bottom. Okay, so it's just finished and I need to pull the bobbin. So I'm going to say pull bobbin. And I'm going to say move away. And I'm grabbing that thread and saying move back. And single stitch. And I'm going to say release carriage. I'm going to pull it back and then pull up enough to have tails to bury. And I'm stitching with the end that pulls freely. Okay, so now I'm going to say back and I'm going to say finished. Now, so if you'll remember, we had flipped that with the blue down arrow. So now we're going to flip it back, okay? Because now we're going to go over to the right side. And now I'm going to put my needle over where this corner ended. Let me do my blue pen. Makes it easier. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing it for me. So now I've got it exact. And sometimes what I'll do, if the machine wants to move just a tad, I'll balance the handle there against my arm so that when I get it exactly where I want, I can kind of hold it exactly in place and touch that node. Okay, so now I am ready to, in fact, it just shifted on me. Let me try this again. Making sure. Okay. So now I'm going to tap on sew because it looks like everything is good. And I'm going to tap on quilt. And pull bobbin. And single stitch. Okay, I'm going to hold those tails and say sew. And I'll let go of them when it starts stitching. Okay, so when this finishes, we'll be back. Okay, we have finished stitching both the side chunked parts. And one thing we want to go ahead and do is save it. So I'm going to tap on that, and where I was saving everything. So the file name I'm going to give it is, I'm going to say Chunked Side Border. Enter and save. Now, as quilt builds up on the take-up rail, it may be that I'm going to have to reduce down to 2 patterns, okay? And then at that point, I'll take 4.547 off of the total width, so it's just twice of the pattern width of the, yeah. So that's how we'll do this, and we won't have to keep refiguring on the pattern width, because that is what it is based on the length down the sides between the corner blocks. So, okay, so I've got 2 zones finished, and of course that's the thing with chunking the borders. You're never really equal with, or I doubt you would usually be, with where the border ends and where a zone ends. So now I'm ready to add some more. So I'm going to go into Pantograph, and the first thing I want to do is just tap on there and the little yellow ruler, and just do kind of a remeasure and see what my quilting space is. Not much is built up on the take-up rail, so still 16.305. So let's see, I need to select my pattern. This was the chunked side border. I'm going to open it as a pantograph. And my width is 13.64. So 13.64 when it's turned down is going to be absolutely fine. So we are ready to place as a single pattern. And then I need to, because I'm going to be doing the left side, I need to flip it, okay? So I'm going to tap on the down pointing arrow, okay? And I want this to still be 1 point, okay? So we're going to change it to 1 point. And I'm going to move my needle over the, that point where this started stitching, okay? So I'm going to move my needle over that spot and tap that gray node up, and I bet I'm going to be in a mess now. I'm going to show you what happens when you don't rotate it. Look at this. That's a mess. Okay, so now I'm going to tap on, I'm just going to tap on reset. Okay, so now I do need to, let's see, I need to flip that again, okay, and I need to tap this twice. Okay, so it's oriented like it needs to be. But that's what happens when you place it and then do your reversing or rotating. It goes crazy on you. So you're an eyewitness now. And now I'm ready to tap there and everything's fine. Okay, so I'm ready to stitch this out. And let's see, I need to mark my, I need to go into plugins and mark it. Well, I could have done the marking tool down there. You can get to it both ways, but one's already added for me, so I need to do that. And I'll just add a few. Okay, and then we'll add marking to enter. I like pushing away from me, it's easier. Add. Okay. So this is interesting. That's weird. Because it looks like it needs to go over some. So that's kind of strange. I wonder how that happened. Let me try just a little bit replacing this, but I gotta be careful doing that because I want them to hook up. That shifted it just a tad more, so I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to be okay with that. And you know, while I'm in here, so I won't forget, I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. So I'm going to say add marking, 3, enter. And we'll do this. Add. Okay, and then add marking, 4, enter. And we'll add this other line. Add. Okay, so now I have those lines for when I get ready to do the other side. So now I'll go back on to placements, and I am ready to pull bobbin and sew. So I'm going to tap on quilt. And I'm going to go into settings and just make sure I still have everything set that I want, and I do, so that's okay. And now I'm ready to pull bobbin. Okay, single stitch. Okay, and I'm going to hold them nice and tight. And then we'll be back when we're ready to switch to the other side. Okay, so the left side has finished stitching, and I'm pull the bobbin, and I'm going to tap on finished. And now that I'm going to be going to the other side, I need to tap on that down pointing arrow to get it flipped over. And now I need to move my needle over that last stitch from the last border over here. And okay, I'll tap on the node, and maybe I'll do it just a tiny nudge over. But you know what? I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it like that because I do want it to link up. So now all I have to do is quilt this, and then we'll be back, because I think after we get this stitched, then I think we're going to need to do the bottom corners next, because we don't want to, the last bit of chunking we don't want to do until the bottom corners are done. So I think after we quilt this, we'll be doing the bottom corners. So we'll be back when this is finished. Okay, so the last side chunked borders have been stitched, and you can see that we don't have a lot of room left. And I think there's probably going to be room for 2. We've been doing 3, but I think we're going to reduce it down to 2. But right now, we want to do the bottom corners, because we want to have this end stitch to connect to. We want to be able to stretch them to fit there. So I need to select pattern, and so I'm going to say no to that question, and I'm going to select the corner block that we saved, and I'm going to say open. Okay, and I need it on corner. We need 1 point corner, and it needs to be rotated. I'm going to reverse those blue arrows and tap that 45 twice. And I've already drawn the blue lines and everything, so I'm going to move it over the intersection of those lines and tap on the gray node. And oh, you know what? I forgot to do the lines across. Let me do the marking tool real quick. And let's see. We'll add marking, and we'll say 5, enter. And okay, I'm going to say add, and I'm just going to be brave and go all the way across to this one and say add marking, 6, enter, and then we'll do this lower one. Okay, I meant to have everything done, and look, I messed up. Okay, and I want to be brave and go all the way across, and add. Okay, now we'll go back into placements. Now do we think this corner looks okay? You know what? I'm good with that. So I am ready to quilt this. So we'll quilt this one, and then we'll come back and quilt the other one. Okay, the lower left has been stitched, so we're going to tap on finished. And now we need to rotate this for this other corner. I'm going to tap on 45 twice, and I'll move my needle over the intersection. In fact, I can't see it. I'm going to give myself a little darker blue dot so I can tell where the good intersection is. Okay, there it is. And tapping on the green, and yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, so we're going to quilt this and come back, and then we'll be able to finish chunking the sides. So that'll be exciting. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, we are now finished with all 4 corner blocks. Okay, so now we're finished and we're back to pattern placement, but now we need to X out of here and go back here. Well, now we need to reduce this down to 2 patterns, okay? So where we've had a pattern width of 4.547, and so that 4.54, I need to turn my calculator on. So 4.547 times 3 was that 13.64, okay? So now we only need 2, because when I measure from here to here, it's 9 inches, okay? So now we see just how close we came. So when I say 4.547, that's a single pattern width, times 2, I get 9.094. So that's going to become my new total width. So I'm going to say 9.094, okay? And now I need to, well, it went ahead and made it 2 patterns for me. So, because we're in easy mode, yes, it would do it for me. So now we are ready to stitch. So that's pretty cool that from here to here, we just measured 9 inches, and look, 9.1. How great is that? So there's not going to be any distortion in that. So I love that. So now we're ready to place as a single pattern, okay? And this particular one, the end points aren't in the center. They're, let me blow it up a little bit so you can see. See that green line that connects the starting and ending point is not in the center. So I have to be very particular with how I place this, okay? So I need it to be 2-point and stretch. Okay, I need that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my needle over. This was the starting point for this lower left corner block. And I'm going to tap on this end point that's closest to the left, okay? So I'm doing it on the bottom, okay? So the node that's farthest to the right is going to go up to the top, okay? So now I'm moving this over that node, over that stitch. That's where of the last pattern to stitch above. That's the beginning stitch there. And I'll blow it up, okay? So now you can see it's fitting in where it needs to fit, okay? So I'm good. Okay, so all we have left to do now is to stitch the one on the right side. I'm going to hit reset. I'm going to take it back to fit so we can see. And again, I'm going to go for the node that's farthest to the right, and I'm going to place it at the bottom. I don't know if that's the beginning. That would be the ending stitch, I guess, of the bottom corner block. I'm going to put my needle over that stitch and tap on that far right node. And then I'm coming up here to the last stitch of the last pattern to stitch above it. I'm going to tap there, blow it up so we can see it. It's oriented like it needs to be, so I don't need to flip it. So I'm ready to stitch. And Okay, now I'm ready to connect the two lower corners with the border across. So I'm going to select the pattern that I had saved from where I did the top border. So I'm going to open that as a pantograph, and I want to go ahead and flip it. And because there's only one row, that's considered an odd row. So I'm going to flip it down there. So now it's oriented like I need it to be. Places a single pattern. I want 2-point stretch, so that's what I've got it as. And then I'll move my needle over where that stitching ended and tap that gray node, and it changes to green, and move the needle over here and tap that gray node. And I'm good with how it's fitting in because it's pretty close at the bottom, but I'm good with the way it works. So I'm going to quilt that, and that would be the end. So that's how easy it is to chunk down the sides. It's a little bit of math involved, but this should keep you straight. Hopefully it will, and make it easier. And then I've got the borders and corners cheat sheet for you to follow along.